Does Auburn's success in the spring portal window change expectations going into the season?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining us on today's show, it is the Jake Crain of Crain and Company. It has been too long, my friend. Hope you are well. I want to talk about Auburn's quarterback situation, not with the starters, but how Hugh Freeze could potentially handle it this year, and as well as just the implications of Hugh Freeze's third season being very, very close. But expectations, I think most people would agree that Auburn has had a pretty successful spring portal window. You get experienced guys to come be depth pieces, and you hold on to the current state of the roster. Jake, expectations for this Auburn team, it kind of varies based on who you talk to, and if you're an optimist, or if you're a pessimist, or if you believe in Jackson Arnold or not, or if you believe in Hugh Freeze or not. But just from the, if we zoomed all the way out, does the spring portal window change anything as far as what Auburn's expectations should be going into 2025?
Well, I mean, I think you help the roster. I mean, and nowadays it's not just about getting guys; it's about holding on to the guys that you have to. I mean, the re-recruitment process has led to a lot of people having to build a new wing into the building. As far as raising expectations, I don't think so, because I think they were already pretty high and they should be pretty high. I think this would maybe cement some people into having high expectations that maybe were a little bit on the fence. But as far as what Auburn needs to do and what Hugh Freeze needs to do at this point in his tenure at Auburn, they do need to be high. To be honest with you, Zach, they always need to be high. The standard doesn't need to change. We always talk about this, but reality has to be accepted when you lose a lot of guys, or you're rebuilding, or you just took over a program. But Auburn's not at that point. Like, the monster should be about built by now. And Auburn's got to go out there and I think win, to meet my expectations, it's at least 8 this year. And if it's going to just be 8, it needs to be the right 8. One of those 2 wins needs to be against Alabama or Georgia out of those 8. So as far as raising it, I don't think so, because they were already set, because we're at the point now, like I said, where the Mega Rangers should already be put together. We just got to go out there and start dicing folks up.
It's Mega Zord, I think. Don't the Rangers put together the Mega Zord at the end of the episode?
Maybe, Zach. That sounds about right.
So you said something that I've heard a lot of. Like, if you get 8, you need a good win against Alabama or Georgia. Most people would say, I think the win against Alabama is more likely than a win against Georgia, whatever. But let's just say one of them. If that's the case, if you go 8-4, and let's just say you have a win against Alabama, one of those 4 losses is really bad, though.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to generate a lot of conversation.
Yeah, but again, I mean, this goes back to the struggles that Auburn has had here recently. I mean, 8 wins, and I'm not saying that I think that's what it's going to be or that's the ceiling, but as bad as it's been lately, 8 wins now for Auburn feels a little bit different than it did a while ago when Auburn was cooking. And yes, to that point, when you look at the schedule right now, I mean, it's easy to say right now, one of those losses would be bad, but I mean, at the end of the day, we don't know what a lot of these teams are going to do. I mean, you look at the SEC, I mean, outside of Georgia, and there's a couple others maybe you could put in there. Who's a safe bet to be really, really good? We know a couple teams that we think might struggle, but it always changes. I mean, go back to last year. Look at a lot of people in the Big 12 at this point last year weren't sitting there saying, hey, watch out for Arizona State. So you never really know who's going to come up, who's going to be down. But if you're Auburn, again, at the end of the day, you have built to this moment. You have had, and you brought up the spring portal. Yeah, they've had success in the spring portal. They had success high school recruiting on signing day. Yeah. You had success, I think, in the early portal window as well. Now it's got to show itself on the field. It's now or never for Auburn.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, I mean, you asked the question or make the point about, how many surefire teams are there in the SEC where it's like they're going to be good. They got a chance to compete for the conference. Like, I'd put Texas in there. I think LSU's probably in one of those top 2 tiers. People would have said Tennessee, but like Auburn doesn't play those teams. Mm-hmm. They play Oklahoma and Texas A&M, which both have plenty of questions. I think I'm a little higher on A&M than Oklahoma. A lot of people disagree with me on that, which is fine. But obviously Georgia, Missouri, like they're having to replace a bunch of pieces. Yeah, including quarterback, including, Luther. You go to Arkansas, which, I mean, it seems like Pittman's a dead man walking at this point. Kentucky, whatever. At Vandy, normally I'd say whatever, but, the whole Diego Pavia thing versus Hugh Freeze hasn't been great. I got a feeling that ends this year, but we'll see. We'll see. But all of those, I don't think are teams that are going to be competing for the SEC this year.
No, and I mean, look at what just happened to Tennessee with Nico leaving. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I've said this on our show, Texas is going to be really talented, but Texas is having to replace a lot too. And listen, I hope Arch Manning ends up being as good as what people say he is, but we haven't seen enough to sit here and I feel a lot better about Johnny Mateer at Oklahoma than I do about Arch Manning right now. And to be honest with you, Zach, I think Oklahoma is kind of scary when you look at them. When you look at what they returned on the defensive line, I know they lost a couple pieces at linebackers, but I think they've done a really good job through recruiting, development, and through the portal. And then offensively, Mateer was the best quarterback in the transfer portal. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. They brought OC so he doesn't have to learn new terminology or anything like that. And there's no way the injury bug can hit him as bad as it did last year. I mean, Oklahoma was decimated on the injury standpoint, and they just got Jaden Ott from Cal, who Auburn fans know is a problem. So we'll see. I just don't think there's as many surefire, hey, these teams are going to be 100% legit. You can go in. LSU's got to tackle somebody on defense, Zach.
Sure.
So I'm not ready to pencil in LSU as a surefire playoff team right now,
and I agree with you, but a lot of people are. A lot of people think LSU is a top 3 or 4 team in the SEC. So I'm just saying that the teams at the top outside of Bama and Georgia, Auburn doesn't have to play.
Yeah. No, the schedule. It is somewhat, and I don't like to use the term easy. I use light or heavy. Auburn's schedule
more manageable.
At the beginning, it's Auburn's not getting kind of the breath of air they got last year in the first 4 or 5, and I don't think they handled that great, to be honest with you.
No,
but if they can make it through the first 5 or 6 weeks and stay afloat, you could really see Auburn put themselves in a position to do some damage late.
Yeah, if you win 2 of your 3 road games in that first 5-game stretch, at Baylor, at Oklahoma, at Texas A&M, if you win 2 of those, you've got a shot. You've got a shot to do something.
And you get Georgia and Bama at home, right? I mean, look, 10-2 gets you in. 10-2 gets you in the playoff. I do think we are going to have a 9-3 SEC team get in the college football playoff this year. I think we're going to have that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. Or do we see a 10-3 SEC team get into the playoff?
I think so. I think if you make the SEC, I mean, that would imply that you made the SEC championship game. So if you make the conference championship game, I think you're pretty much a shoo-in.
Yeah, I agree. All right. What does Hugh Freeze need to do different in his 3rd year? Is it play calling? Has he done enough with the roster? That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn your TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles, whether it's EA Sports College Football 25 or the latest Call of Duty. You can check it all out at Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller is required. Available on select devices, including the Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and the Fire TV Cube. Jake Crain of Crain & Company hanging out with us on today's edition of the show. I know it's easy to say, well, Auburn's roster is so much better. But one question that I do have is, Auburn had a better roster than a handful of the teams that they lost to a year ago. I think their roster was better than Cal's. I think their roster was better than Arkansas's. I think their roster on game day was better than Oklahoma's. And to me, that falls on either quarterback play or coaching. Mm-hmm. The quarterback situation has obviously changed. Peyton Thorne is no longer or I guess Hank Brown, when you talk about Arkansas, no longer on the roster. Is that enough when you change the quarterback position, upgrade the quarterback position by all accounts, and just have a better roster? Or does Hugh Freeze need to change how he does things as a head coach?
Well, I obviously personnel matters the most. I mean, I've seen, and I'm not saying this is Hugh Freeze, but I've seen coaches that weren't great look like geniuses because their players were better, and vice versa. Where
Yeah.
I think the coaching and the preparation comes into this year, and maybe some things that would change. I felt like Auburn got too cute at times last year instead of just doing the obvious thing. For example, the Oklahoma game. You don't need to attach an RPO when you're doing what you were doing against Oklahoma in the second half. Don't give the quarterback that you can assume nothing. You can assume nothing. And that's, kind of sad given the experience that Peyton Thorne had. And you would think, you could tag it and he would hand it. But you can't get too cute. But make no mistake, it makes you a whole heck of a lot better coach when you're good on the line of scrimmage and you're deep. I think that's going to be the difference for Auburn this year on the offensive line mixed with the quarterback. Now, we have to see with Jackson Arnold. Am I still a little bit worried about Jackson Arnold in an RPO-style offense that he got benched at running at Oklahoma, now doing it at Auburn, even though there are variable differences? Yeah, a little bit, but let's not forget, Oklahoma's offensive line really struggled last year. I think if you put the pieces around Jackson Arnold, he is more talented than Peyton Thorne. And I think if he'll just take the wins when he can get them, throwing the check down, making the easy decision, not trying to force it. If the run is there on 3rd and 6 and you can run for 7, get down, get out of bounds. So it's just not getting too cute, not over preparing. And having the personnel that I think is going to be the difference this year for Auburn on the offensive line and at quarterback.
Yeah. Are you concerned at all about, Xavier Chaplin comes in, best left tackle in the transfer portal, didn't really go through spring. And then same with Connor Lew. I mean, we know what Connor Lew looks like in an Auburn jersey. We don't really know what Xavier Chaplin looks like in this Auburn system. Do you care, or is it just such a clear upgrade over what Auburn had at tackle last year where you're okay with it?
I'm fine with it. The coaches are making the decisions that they feel are best to be able to get the roster as healthy as possible. I mean, you always want guys competing. You can always get better. Reps help. But make no mistake, Xavier Chaplin, he's not a puppy. Like, he's not this isn't Drew Barrymore from 51st Stage. He's not just going to forget once it starts. So I think, if a guy's obviously blatantly hurt, you don't want to increase that injury risk. But these guys have proven what they can do, and it is such a big upgrade, Zach. That's why, getting Singleton was huge. The skill players, all that stuff's great. But Xavier Chaplin is one of the biggest transfer portal gets that Auburn has gotten in a long time, and they're trying to protect that because at the end of the day, you win games and lose games on the line of scrimmage. That's how you win championships. So, no, I'm not concerned at all. Those guys know what they're doing.
Which transfer portal addition will have a larger impact, Chaplin or wide receiver Eric Singleton?
Chaplin. Because Singleton can't do what he does if they don't protect the quarterback.
Sure.
Like it all starts with that. I mean, having tires, nice racing tires on a car doesn't help if the engine doesn't work. And the engine is the line of scrimmage because that's where it starts and ends, including having a run game that's good enough to set up those RPO tags, to set up the play action game, to be a balanced offense. So to me, it starts and stops with the line of scrimmage, and then you let the icing on top of the cake take over. And that's where you're going to see Singleton and Coleman and all these guys really be able to shine because Jackson has time, and that starts with Xavier Chaplin and that group up front.
Yeah. Do you think so? I mean, going back to what Hugh Freeze needs to do differently in his 3rd year. I mean, do you think he takes those steps? Says, hey, like we're a better team than the team we're lining up against. Like, we don't have to be fancy all the time, especially on 3rd down, especially on 3rd and short, especially once you're in the red zone. That to me is my biggest question about this team.
No, I think he'll make that adjustment because it almost happens for you. I mean, last year, yes, Auburn's roster was better than it had been. It was better than some teams they lost to, but it wasn't like it was just easy sledding and a lot of it was blatantly obvious. I mean, Auburn was having to kind of smoke and mirror their way through some things on offense, even though the run game was particularly good. It's just the lack of the consistent passing game really hurts you when you're running the RPO stuff. Because if I can take one thing away from you and make you dribble with your left, you're going to struggle. But I think it's going to be so blatantly obvious that you send the guys out there, you get them ready. If you got to keep it basic and you got to keep it simple and it's working, then do it. And that yields itself more when you have more talent. And that's what I think Hugh Freeze is going to see, and that's what they're going to do.
How many teams will Auburn play this year where their roster is better? I can go through them if you need me to.
Yeah. Go ahead through them.
Baylor?
Yes.
Oklahoma?
Tie.
A&M?
I'm going to say, give me A&M.
Okay. Georgia? Missouri?
Auburn.
Arkansas?
Auburn.
Kentucky?
Auburn.
Vandy? Auburn. Then Alabama.
Bama, but not by as much as it used to be. Not by as much as Georgia's is. I'm telling you, like this Bama team's about to be interesting too.
So you've got a tie, and then you picked the other team for 3. So 7.5 is where
when
you're
in
at.
the SEC, that's pretty good, Zach. Like, I mean, unless you're one of the top of the top, which we'll see.
Yeah, and that's the line. And pretty much that's the line of our friends at FanDuel. Like 7.5 wins. It's like if you win the games where you have a better team than who you're playing against, you're going to take a step forward. It's just you got to win.
We'll see
you
with
win
injuries.
The games.
You never know. I mean, look, somebody from A&M could go down early. I mean, it's just we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and just the whole depth. I mean, what they've been able to do in this spring window of getting guys who were starters at other schools to come be role players, to convince them to be role players with limited years left of eligibility. It's incredible to me.
No, I mean, I've always said because there's different ways to bake the cake. Some coaches do it differently. They want to go half and half, portal, high school development. I always thought that the best recipe, because you've got to enter the transfer portal, is you don't build the ship out of the transfer portal. You just plug holes in the ship with the transfer portal. Well, Auburn has not only plugged holes in the ship with the transfer portal, they've got some extra storage and extra supplies now underneath the boat in case something else happens. Yeah. And that's the difference. When you play the game of football that is so violent and injuries happen so much, it's not about your first 5 offensive linemen. You got to have pretty much at least 8. When you look at corner, when you're running zone and man concepts like Auburn does, you have to be deep there. That's why the Pleasant kid that they just got is a really, really good add. And don't forget the special teams element too, Zach. That has got to become a weapon again for Auburn. In the past, when Auburn's been cooking, they've had some of the best special teams units in the country.
You're right.
You do that with talented depth, not just young guys that are talented, but you need a good mix. And I think Auburn's really helped himself in that regard.
Yeah. And I think with some of these additions, like we miss it a little bit. Like, Jay Hardy, James Ash on the defensive line. Like some people look at it like, oh, the Liberty, Florida A&M. Like, why? And it's like, well, they're like tail end of the rotation guys. Like the room gets better. The room gets deeper with them. Like we're not asking them to start. This isn't a situation like last year where we were going to get Isaiah Rakes and Philip Bleedy and say like, hey, we need you to start.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes
Pleasant at corner.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes there's a common misconception of, oh man, if our starters are just really good, we can just be okay behind them and get away with it. The goal of roster management isn't just to have great starters. Obviously, your team is going to be as good as your 2s and 3s are. If you can upgrade your 2s and 3s, obviously it helps you in the game. But one of the things that helps you the most is practice. There's not a huge drop off when the 1s go versus the 2s. You want quality reps, right? We see this all the time. I mean, because you're going to play how you practice. And the better your backups can be, the better your starters will be. And then if one of them gets hurt or they need a blow, you want a quality player going in there after that. You can't have this huge chasm drop off between your first group of defensive ends and then your second ones are like Rudy running out there. That's not how this game works. And I think Auburn, again, has helped himself in that area where you can have 2s and possibly even 3s be able to come in there and make a quick impact, give those other guys a blow or let them get out of the tent and get healed up or whatever, and then put them back in there. So that's how you build a championship team.
Yeah. Jake, I want to ask you about Auburn's quarterback situation. When you talk about roster management, we're not talking about the starter. I mean, Jackson Arnold's the guy going into the season. But what happens after that? I want to touch on that in just a second, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book in the NBA playoffs. They're here, and FanDuel wants to help you get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and you place your first $5 bet, you can get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes betting easy, whether you're picking your favorite team or diving into player props, or you want to add a nice parlay. FanDuel has you covered. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. Jake Crain of Crain and Company hanging out with us for a few more minutes. Hugh Freeze talked about the quarterback position a little bit in his post-A-Day presser when he talked about like he wasn't quite sure if they wanted to do the whole NFL model. Do you go and get a fourth scholarship quarterback, or is it more about, just ride with what you got? And he kind of hinted at it's a tough sell. Like, what exactly are you selling to a quarterback that's coming in? They've done that with other positions, as we mentioned, at linebacker, at defensive line, at corner. Quarterback's a little different because you can't sell the future because Deuce Knight is the future. You can't sell the now because Jackson Arnold and then even Ashton Daniels is the now. If you're Hugh Freeze, how do you handle the depth at the quarterback spot?
Well, it is a tough sell. I mean, especially if guys are further on in their career, unless they want to coach and they know they're not going to play past college and you're pretty much GAing as a player with that fourth spot. I really don't know how you go get a guy that you're like, hey, we're excited he's going to be able to play. If you're Hugh Freeze, to me, with a guy like Jackson Arnold that is a run threat and has the, is a natural passer of the ball. Now he's got to improve in some areas. We've talked about that till we're blue in the face. But I don't think this is a package situation with your quarterbacks. Like this isn't if you're going to go Wildcat, snap it to the running back, man. Like, I know there's a million ways to skin a cat, but to me, I think it's pretty simple. Jackson Arnold is your starter, obviously. When it's the game is on the line and you need somebody out there, that's going to be your guy. Now, if he gets hurt, that's when the question becomes, all right, is it Deuce Knight? Is it Ashton Daniels? But I don't think it's something where you let Jackson Arnold take the team 80 yards down the field and you get in the red zone and throw Ashton Daniels in there. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory this year. Now, I think another question you ask is, all right, with the new redshirt rules where you can play in more games now, if you do get up big and you want to put a backup in, I think you put Deuce Knight in there. I think you get him the reps. I think Ashton Daniels only comes in if Jackson Arnold can't play or Deuce Knight isn't ready or can't play because of some sort of injury. That's the way it looks to me. Yeah. But I just don't want to get into this package situation. This is why you have a dual threat quarterback. It's the whole point of having.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like other people taking the snap even with Peyton because, like, Peyton, you could say what you want about him. Like, actually decent with his feet. Like,
could run. Yeah, I agree. And it throws the rhythm off, man. Like it just.
Right. I hate moving your quarterback away from, if you're going to do like a direct snap or something, like I'm cool with different things you could do there, but that's just, I don't know.
That's the getting too cute I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I've been asked a bunch on different radio shows and stuff I go on. You probably have been too. It's like, who's the backup quarterback? And it's like, well, what are you asking? Like, because if Jackson Arnold were to get hurt, at the end of a game or something like that, and the game's in check, like you probably send in Deuce Knight if it's 35-10. But then throughout the week, like who are you prepping to get ready for the next week? If Deuce Knight's not ready, like I do think it's Ashton Daniels. So I think you give the reps in garbage time to Deuce, but early on in the season, especially, like if something were to happen to Jackson, like they probably get Ashton ready. So like who is the backup quarterback? I think that's a nuanced question.
Well, and I think Auburn has a lot better options, and no offense to anybody before, but I think, again, by bringing in Ashton, that was the best part of bringing in Ashton Daniels. It's like, not that you were bringing him in to start, but it's like, man, you have a young guy that's asking a lot of Deuce Knight, which, who knows, Zach, maybe Deuce Knight is number 2. Maybe he is the backup and he earns it and he's better than Ashton Daniels. For Auburn fans, that's probably the best case scenario, to be honest with you, but you got to live in the real world and understand that, if we have a true freshman, that's our 2. If Jackson goes down, we got to have another guy in case he goes out there and it's a little bit too fast for him. So that's how I think you're going to see Hugh Freeze play it. But you're going to know pretty quickly who's getting those legitimate 2 reps in practice as we go into this into fall camp, obviously, and then in the game week against Baylor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is an interesting spot where you need to give 3 quarterbacks reps.
You have to. Like, and again, that's where that fourth one kind of, because you got to have a scout team guy, right? Now you have walk-ons and things like that. And there's,
I think John Colvin can do that. I think he can do it.
Yeah, he probably can. It's just, again, you have to have at least 3, right? You got to travel with 3. And that's when you start talking about the fourth. Do you use that spot for a fourth? The NFL model, kind of as you were talking about, that's a little bit of a different conversation. But if you're down to your fourth quarterback, it ain't good.
Yeah. Jake Crain of Crain & Company. How can people check out everything you've got going on?
Oh, easy, man. It's just go to Google. It's Crain & Company, CRAINN Company. We're on YouTube, Roku, other stuff I'm not smart enough to remember, and then like all the audio stuff, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, every weekday, 2 p.m. Central, talking a decent amount of Auburn too. It's starting to, I don't know, I'm starting to feel the rainbows and the good vibes here, Zach.
It's the bug.
A little bit scary to feel,
because the bug.
I don't want to get too optimistic too early.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll all be picking Auburn to go like 8-4 or 9-3 or maybe better. We'll see.
Yeah. Look, my body's ready. I'm ready to be hurt again.
I'm ready to get hurt again. 100%.
I'm ready.
100%.
I'm back. I forgive you.
Hey, please like the video. Please subscribe. If you're tuning in on audio, please subscribe and leave a review there. Helps the show out a ton. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.